There is a moment in bird photography that lasts less than a second. A bird lifting its wings, a sudden takeoff. That split seconds when everything happens before your brain even reacts. And most of the time we don't miss the photo because we are slow. We miss it because our setup is not prepared. This video is not about perfect settings. It's about building a camera and lens setup that gives you calm, control and just a little more time when birds decided to move. Today I want to show you how I personally set up the Nikon Z50 II with the 180 to 600 mm lens based on real use in the field. Not theory, not laboratory test, just the true I use for my videos, for my photos. Before we go into the menu, there is something important to understand. Bird photography, it's not about automation. It's about decision making. I don't want the camera to think instead of me. I want it to react with me. So every setting you will see here is chosen for 3 reasons: speed, precision, and simplicity under pressure. Because when a bird appears, you don't want to fight the camera, you want to stay present. I shoot RAW plus JPEG most of the time. RAW gives me flexibility to really work the image later, especially with light and shadows. JPEG gives me something else, speed. It allows quick previews, fast comparisons in the field and sometimes even a quick export when I don't want to touch the file too much. But for bird photography, the most important thing is actually the drive mode. My default is continuous high H or H+. Fast enough, reliable and predictable. And stay with me, later in this video I will show you a special mode that I only activate when I feel that something is about to happen. For bird photography there is only one autofocus mode that really makes sense: AFC, continuous autofocus. Birds move, even when they look stay, they are not. AFC doesn't just focus once, it tracks the birds during its movement, constantly updating focus as the situation changes. And that's exactly what we need in 99% of bird photography situations. This might surprise some people. My default AF area mode is not single point. Most of the time I use a custom rectangular AF area, roughly covering about 1/3 of the frame. This gives me a very good balance between speed and control. It's large enough to acquire the bird quickly, but small enough to avoid distractions from branches, backgrounds or elements outside the subject. For bird photography, this works incredibly well in real situations, especially when things happen fast. It allows the autofocus to stay focused on what matters without trying to analyze the entire frame. In the subject detection mode, I set it to birds. If you photograph many different subjects, auto can make sense. But when I'm out specifically for birds, I want the camera to know that. Less guessing, more intention. I keep stabilization on normal most of the time, but when photographing birds in flight, I switch to sport. Sport mode helps keep the subject stable in the viewfinder while allowing natural movements. It feels more connected, especially when panning. There is one setting worth knowing about, especially if you often switch between horizontal and vertical orientation. You can tell the camera to remember different AF point positions for each orientation. That way, when you rotate the camera, the focus points stay where it makes sense, instead of jumping to awkward positions. It sounds small, but in the field, for some photographers, it can make a real difference. The focus confirmation color is something many photographers overlook. When the focus box turns green, it simply means the camera believes it has focus. It doesn't mean the photo is perfect, and in bird photography you should never rely on it alone. But as feedback, it can be useful to understand what the camera is doing in that moment. Photography is a conversation between you and the camera, and this is just one part of that dialogue. Manual focus overriding in AF mode can be extremely useful. Mirrorless cameras sometimes stick to the background. It happens. Being able to gently turn the focus ring and immediately pull focus back to the bird can save a situation. That said, this is one way to regain control, not the only one. In bird photography, what matters most is having a method to take control back quickly. I strongly believe in one thing. If a function is important, it deserves a button. In my setup, custom buttons are not about comfort. They are about reaction time. I use buttons too. First, switch AF area mode instantly and jump to a single point when precision is needed. Assign it to the AE lock and AF lock button. Second, change drives modes and enter the pre-capture mode without leaving the viewfinder. Assign it to the exposure compensation button. And third, I assign the focus ring on the lens to exposure compensation. No menu diving, no hesitations. Your fingers should already know what your eyes are about to see. Now, let's talk about something special, pre-capture. I set the pre-capture time to 0.3 seconds. Not because it's the minimum, but because it matches my own reaction time. It gives me just enough margin to catch the movement without flooding the buffer or losing control. This feature only works in JPEG and only in Z50 continuous mode, and that's okay. For me, pre-capture is not something I live on, it's something I decided to activate. That's why I assign drive mode to a button. Which button? An easy access button. In my case, the exposure compensation button. So, without taking my eye out of the viewfinder, I can move from single shot to H or H+ to Z50 with pre-capture activated. Because birds don't wait for menu navigation. Yes, it's JPEG, but sometimes the moment matters more than the file. This is not automation, this is anticipation. I personally assign the control ring on my 180 to 600 mm lens to exposure compensation. That allows me to react to light instantly, without searching for buttons. For me, this feels more natural than correcting exposure later. Again, there is no single right setup, only the one that lets you stay present. Silent mode is beautiful, no sound, less disturbance, and I use it for perched birds, calm situations, close encounters, but not for action. Rolling shutter can distort movement, and birds move fast. Since the Z50 II uses a non-stacked sensor, this effect is much more prominent than on high-end bodies like the Z8 or the Z9. Use it with intention, not by default. In playback, I enable focus point display and highlights warning. I don't chimp every image, but when I check, I want information. Highlights teach me exposure. Focus points teach me honesty. Once everything is set, I save my settings to the SD card. Not because I expect failure, but because peace of mind matters. Photography should be about seeing, not remembering menus. These are not the best settings. They are the settings that allows me to stay calm when a bird appears. They reduce friction, they give me space. Try them, adapt them, make them yours. Because in the end, the camera is just a tool. But preparation, that's what turns a moment into a photograph. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the field. Bye bye.